Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right, welcome tokers and tokettes and non-token lovers of liberty. It's 4:02 in the Pacific time zone. Coming to you live from Portland, Oregon, America's cannabis capital. I'm Radical Russ. It's time for Toker Talk Radio. I got to run a caveat here, a disclaimer, if you will. I could be wrong. I had a discussion with my wife the other night on this, and we were just, I don't even remember what the issue was. It was one of my rants I was telling her about. And she disagreed with some of the things I said in the rant. And I said, well, I could be wrong. And she goes, you know what? You really need to say that a little more often on your show. I'm like, well, I don't know. I kind of like people to listen to my show because they think I've got the answers to things. But she said, no. As a talk show host and as somebody who's, well-spoken and a passionate debater on a subject, you may intimidate some people from wanting to discuss things with you because they think you're going to, shout them down or make them look stupid. Like, that might be a point there. So let me just add this disclaimer. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And if you think I'm wrong, tell me so. See, this is the way I've learned everything in my life. I got to tell you a little bit about me is that I like to bicker. My dad and I, that was how we bonded, is we'd bicker. And I describe bickering as different from argument. Bickering is just arguing for the sake of argument, right? Just to have an argument. It could be about anything. My dad could say, the moon is 250,000 miles from Earth. And I could say, no, Dad, it's 225,000. And we would bicker or argue about that, right? Just for the fun of it. So it's kind of a Socratic method that I have. I have this experience of, I'm mostly self-taught in everything I've done. I've gone to college, but I don't have a degree. I'm mostly, as they call it, autodidactic. I've pretty much been a self-taught person from, I taught myself how to play bass, bassoon, taught myself how to code. Me and Joe Lundgren, my junior years, in front of a HP 3000 mainframe with a 600-page basic programming manual. And Fortran and COBOL. And am I ringing any bells for anyone out there with those names? But anyway, so I'm pretty much self-taught. And this means that I've kind of had this Socratic method of forming my opinions and my philosophies. And part of that is I read about a subject and I try to get information from as many sides as possible. And I analyze it and I form an opinion. And then I strongly state that opinion as if it's true. And that hopefully gets back reaction from people who disagree, who can take my carefully constructed hypothesis and tear it apart and show how it doesn't comport to the facts. And that allows me to reevaluate my position and perhaps change it. And that's happened over time. I've changed my position on a few issues, just given constructive dialogue on it. But one of the things that I think has happened in our political discourse as of late, and maybe this is exacerbated by, the left, right, center of MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, that kind of thing, is this idea of there being two teams. If you have a philosophy, you're on a specific team. If you feel a way about a certain issue, you're on a certain team, and then it becomes more about fighting for the team and protecting the team from attack than it does, talking and evaluating the actual issues. So I may state a strong opinion, and I may state one that doesn't comport with what our team might necessarily agree with. I've had this happen numerous times in the medical marijuana issues, where patients think you're throwing patients under the bus. I'm not throwing patients under the bus. I have an opinion that differs with yours. And can't we discuss these opinions that differ and come up with different ideas and different analyses and hone those and come up with better conclusions? That's what I want this show to be about. That's what Toker Talk Radio is all about. When it says the voice of the marijuana nation, that's not me that's the voice. That means our voice as a nation, our voice as a people. So let's talk about these issues and get feedback on them. I recently, in an email list here in Oregon, proposed that the Oregon medical marijuana program, for the most part, ought to just be a tax rebate card that gives you greater allowances for your home grow and possession. Why do we need to have a whole separate process for inspecting, regulating, testing growers and distributors and retail shops? Why does there need to be a separation between medical and recreational? And some people take that, oh my God, you're attacking medical. No, I'm stating a strong position, and I want medical to come back and attack my position. Come back and say why there needs to be two separate parallel distribution schemes. And maybe I'll change my mind on some things. That's how we need to get things done, is to engage in vigorous and spirited debate that concentrates on the issues, not the parties or the teams.
The beginning of the end started in 1996 when California legalized weed for so-called medical purposes. 16 years later, Washington and Colorado legalized it outright and let people sell it from storefronts. And what has been the result?
The generation of millions of dollars in tax revenue for the states and creation of hundreds of new jobs in a growing multi-billion-dollar industry?
No. Well, yes, but at what cost?
Let's see. The cost of all that police time and money that's now spent going after real criminals and prisons with enough room to hold them all?
No. Well, yes, but look at what it's done to the people.
You mean that fewer of them are dying of alcohol, tobacco, and prescription-related causes since they've switched to cannabis, and many more are receiving medical benefit from a cheap, non-toxic healing herb?
No. Well, yes to all of that, but I can smell pot from my backyard, and I can't tell my kids not to do it because it's illegal.
420 Radio, fighting prohibition since 2012.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Normal. And I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting those who smoke marijuana responsibly. To learn what you can do to help, contact NORML at NORML.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
The Jody Emery Show with Jody Emery from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Replaying Fridays at 1 Pacific on 420radio.org. Five of the last 9 major party candidates to run for president, 3 of the last 9 vice presidential candidates, and the last 3 two-term presidents have all smoked pot. Marijuana, the gateway drug to the White House. This is the Russ Belville Show.
I'm not very good at singing songs, but here's a try.
If you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent circumvent the universe. Space is filled.
Welcome back, everyone. 10 after the hour. That, of course, is Carl Sagan, the astronomer, cosmologist, astrophysicist, astrobiologist, author, science popularizer, and science communicator, who died December 20th, 1996. We are 11 days away from 18 years without Dr. Sagan. Of course, after his death, it was revealed that he was the Mr. X that wrote in Marijuana Reconsidered, wrote an essay for Dr. Lester Grinspoon explaining his regular use of marijuana, how it helped expand his mind to make greater scientific insights. This is the man who encoded the golden disc on the Voyager spacecraft to explain to alien civilizations millions or billions of years from now who and what we were as human beings. Because if you're trying to encode a message through time to space aliens, you got to get the pot smoker for that, folks. That's the job you got to call the pot smoker for. Carl Sagan had such an impact on my life. His Cosmos series debuted in 1980. I was 12 years old at the time. A nerdy little kid in the Gifted and Talented program, so interested in astronomy. Took a 1/4 course on astronomy, did a little college course when I was in 6th grade. Got to visit the observatory up at Boise State University. It's pretty amazing, folks.
For thousands of years, people have wondered about the universe. Did it stretch out forever, or was there a limit?
And of course, Professor Stephen Hawking. Movie out right now in theaters. If you're looking for a Christmas movie, there's a movie out called The Theory of Everything that explores Professor Hawking's life. We are big fans and supporters of science here at 420 Radio. Thank you for keeping us on the air through the miracles of science that bring us the internet. If you are a business that would like to be a sponsor of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio, check out 420radio.org/advertise. We are looking for a name-level sponsor for 2015. We are already currently booked at 11 national events, including 6 domestic cannabis cups. Likely to be up to 16 events we'll be presenting at, and if you become an unobtainium sponsor, your name goes on the banner that appears at each of those events. We hand out your cards, your flyers. We get your brand recognized from coast to coast, and Colorado in the middle of the country as well. So check it out at 420radio.org/advertise. That, of course, was A Glorious Dawn from Symphony of Science, a series of videos produced by Melody Sheep on YouTube. Check out symphonyofscience.com, or again, Melody Sheep on YouTube. All right, coming back to topic we left off on before the break, and that is my strong opinions on how to meld medical and recreational marijuana. And I've got an article out that's on High Times right now that discusses this very idea. And of course, Washington State's already got a bill that's coming up that would meld a lot of these together. And the question I ask is, if you're going to ask for redundant bureaucracies and redundant supply chains and redundant retail stores for medical and recreational marijuana, you're going to have a good defense of them as to why that's required. Why should the taxpayers pay one entity in the government to regulate recreational, another entity to regulate medical? Why should there be different inspections and different testing levels and different requirements for medical or recreational? Why should there be 2 different buildings for accessing marijuana based on one's reason for using it? So in the chat room, Darthos actually has a good idea here, a good point that need to be made. And that is that there are some localities that either through the law the way it is or other circumstances that will allow that will allow medical distribution that won't allow recreational distribution. They're fine with there being a building where adults go in and access pot as long as they're sick. So that's a good point. And that's why we bring up these, why I bring these things up is to see what people have to say, ideas they may have seen that I haven't. So that's a good one. Now, to me, though, I don't know that that necessarily mandates that there be two systems. And what I'm proposing is make one system for the the growing, the processing, the testing, the distribution, and the retail sales. Make one system run by one government entity. Now, if I could wave a magic wand, it would be a special new entity designed just to deal with cannabis, not the Liquor Control Commission, not the Department of Health, one new kind of entity. Because really, the health authority, it kind of makes sense for them to cover medical because there is a medical aspect to marijuana, but the Liquor Control Commission, we're talking about recreational intoxicant, there's kind of an idea there. Marijuana may be the only thing that is both, and that means it's got special requirements that can't be fully covered by a recreational entity or a medical entity. So what I would propose is you have one entity, one government entity, a cannabis commission, whatever, that runs one system of grow, process, manufacture, all the way to retail, one system. But make that system comport with what medical users need. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to set like an acceptable level, testing levels for pesticides or molds or mildews, set that at the level that the medical patients need. Because however high that is, however strong that is, that'll be fine for recreational users. I don't understand why, like in Washington State right now, they have stringent testing labeling requirements for recreational pot, but not medical. Wouldn't you think it's the patients that need the most stringent regulations and protections? So anyway, let's make one system that sets the bar high enough that the sickest patients can use that as medicine, and that'll be fine for the recreational users. Now, there's also the point about the tax. But here's my thing. With the tax, you can still have a medical program. I'm not saying get rid of a medical program. I'm saying make a medical registry, and that card becomes your rebate, your tax rebate at the point of sale. Right? In Oregon, it's going to be $35 an ounce tax, right? So in Oregon, you go into a pot shop, you show them your OMMP card, they take $35 off at the point of sale. You're getting that ounce for cost. You're not getting it for the, with the extra $35 tax. And in that situation, Darthos brings up about, what about the places that ban recreational, but would allow medical? Well, they can be places that allow a pot shop to exist that requires all its consumers to show a medical card, but still run under the same system. Let's streamline this. Let's not have unnecessary bureaucratic redundancies that lead to little power trips and lead to spending more taxpayer money than we really need to spend. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. Jay Maestro points out in the chat room that recreational has an extra sin tax, but it's not a sin to smoke pot. Runaround says you don't pay tax on prescription meds. Yeah, again, I think that's why we, let the medical card be your tax rebate at point of sale. Also, the other thing about medical, now this was brought up in our Oregon list, one of the email lists I'm on. Under our recreational program in recreational laws in Oregon, home concentrate manufacture is banned. Under the medical program, it's not addressed. It's kind of silent on the issue. So perhaps there needs to be a way to register home concentrate manufacture, and that is something that would require you have your medical card to be able to do. Still, I'm not sanguine on the idea of just openly letting anyone blast with butane anywhere they want just because they have a medical card. I still think that should require some sort of training, some sort of certification, because you're talking about people using explosive heavy gases in residential settings. But I would be willing to concede that, all right, for medical users, they definitely need that more potent concentrate, and they shouldn't be forced to have to pay the $30, $40 a gram levels that I'm seeing in shops now to get that concentrate. I would also allow the medical users to have larger gardens and possess more. I think that's perfectly fair as well. But we just need to, I worry about having redundancy that we can't defend.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
All right, it's 4:20 here on the West Coast. Oregon, Washington, California, British Columbia. Get your smoke on. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Electric Bob will join us with some Daily Toker tunes for Electric Tuesday. Music from Rolling Paper. Sounds pretty appropriate when we come back.
420 Radio, your ticket to the Boston Freedom Rally.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
The Russ Belville Show reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while. Share.
Despite strong public support for medical cannabis, decriminalization, and legalization in Georgia, the state spends $121 million every year to arrest, prosecute, and imprison Georgians for simple possession. Each year, the state of Georgia spends less on driver services, agriculture, and forestry combined. What else can $121 million a year do in Georgia? With that much money, the state could hire and keep 3,000 more teachers, improve roads and bridges, provide tax relief for small businesses, repair aging sewage systems, or lower taxes. But right now, that's millions of dollars of your tax money wasted on failed enforcement. Tell your representative you're tired of wasteful spending and ask them to end cannabis prohibition. Join the conversation at www.peachtreenormal.org. Peachtree Normal is a proud affiliate of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws.
Hey Tokers and Tokettes, Radical Russ here for the Canador, a practical solution to keep herbs from drying. The Canador is the perfect airtight storage system for your fine herbs, from the half-inch thick walnut and cherry wood construction, clear top perforated jars for storage, and the humidity bead system that keeps your herbs at a perfect 65% relative humidity. I keep all my herbs in the Canador, and you should too. Check out Canador.com for more information.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Electric Tuesday, featuring the latest in electronic dance music and other cutting-edge genres. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker tune.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 23 after the hour, and unfortunately, Electric Bob is out for the day, so we're going to have to go with our music from last week. We've got nothing new in the hopper, so we're going to turn to Rolling Paper is the name of the producer, and the tune is called Urban Tapestry, Dark Till Dawn exclusive. Let's get it on.
420 Radio, freeing your mind 24 hours a day.
Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Very effective. Check out lushledlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you.
420radio.org presents Gordon Green's Music Planet from Barcelona, Spain. Gordon Green has been traveling the world for more than 20 years, discovering and collecting great music along the way. His mix of eclectic sounds from around the globe prove that you don't have to understand the words to enjoy the music. Check out the show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Time with replays Wednesday at 5 and 8 Pacific on 420radio.org. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at...
Oh, no, I'm not going to do that to you. Welcome back, everyone. It's 31 and a half after the hour. You know who that is. Okay. Never going to give you up. So, interesting story coming out of Washington, D.C., where on Capitol Hill Tuesday, the leaders of the Prohibition movement, specifically Kevin Sabet, who organized the event, at the Heritage Foundation, were greeted by hecklers as they tried to spout their reefer madness. This is a beautiful thing. Two House Republicans were there. Representative Andy Harris, who is the man who is apparently going to succeed in blocking Washington, D.C.'s legalization law, and Representative John Fleming from Louisiana, who is a medical doctor. Oh, wait till you hear this, folks. Anyway, they tried to pass off some reefer madness, and the people in attendance would not hear it. One heckler said, quote, "I don't want to listen to these lies," and walked out as Andy Harris took the podium. And Harris said that marijuana use can cause a drop in IQ and has no proven medical value. That's right. No proven. Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? No proven medical value, says Representative Andy Harris. And the drop in IQ. The only drop in IQ comes from the people who say marijuana would cause a major drop in IQ. A second protester shouted, quote, "The people voted!" Harris continued by saying, quote, "We can't have a discussion about legalization for adults without considering the possible spillover effect on teenagers. Relaxing laws clearly leads to more teenage use," he said, "because the message that it's dangerous will be blunted." Yeah, blunted. Got it. It's funny. Representative Harris, as Representative Daniel Patrick Moynihan once observed, "We are all entitled to our own opinions, but we are not entitled to our own facts." And the fact is, since marijuana has been legalized in the state of Colorado, teen use is down, while teen use throughout the rest of the United States as a whole has increased. A recent study shows that the states that retained marijuana's criminality saw an increase in teen use over the past few years. In Colorado, it has dropped, and this is despite the fact that teens in Colorado do have a lower perception of risk for marijuana than do teens throughout the United States. Even though they think it's less risky, fewer of them are using it. And fewer teenagers report that it is easy or fairly easy to get a hold of marijuana in Colorado than do teenagers in the nation as a whole. So Representative Andy Harris has no idea what he's talking about. Now, as this continued, a third protester said, quote, "This is about justice," and she was escorted out the door. Harris shared that a pharmaceutical company leader expressed concern to him about Maryland's decriminalization of marijuana. Security guards worked to force out a man suspected of planning to interrupt. Quote, "Don't tread on D.C. Respect the will of D.C. voters," end quote, the man said after an argument with guards. So 4 people now forced out for heckling. And Harris, so pharmaceutical company leaders are worried about decrim? Gosh, I wonder why. Why would the pharmaceutical companies have a problem with people not being punished for using marijuana? Let me think about that for a second. Why would they have a problem with that? Oh, yes. Now I remember. Yeah. Harris's effort to block decriminalization in the nation's capital failed after he conceded that the district could respond by ending enforcement of all laws against marijuana. That's where Harris learned that, hey, if you take away the money to write the tickets, then there is no punishment at all. It doesn't cost any money to not arrest people. We have no money to not arrest people. So yeah, that's why the decrim law is staying in effect, because at least they can make $25 on a ticket. But where Representative Harris merely dabbles in the reefer madness, you gotta get to Louisiana Republican John Fleming for the gourmet reefer madness. Fleming told the anti-marijuana gathering that marijuana is, quote, "a highly addictive substance," end quote, and that it's a gateway to more serious drug use. Yeah, the old gateway drug. Yeah. Always a little bit of respect applause for the venerable gateway drug argument. He says, quote, "Humans do not just decide they're going to go out and use meth," adding that more likely than not, meth users first smoked pot. Humans just don't decide to go out and use meth. What do you think Adderall is? We've got humans deciding to prescribe unto their children the regular use of meth. It's just called Adderall, okay? Chemically almost identical. Plenty of people are using meth that have never touched marijuana. And again, as we must always say with the gateway drug, if you ask a Hell's Angel what was the first wheeled vehicle he ever drove, he's probably going to say a tricycle. That doesn't mean getting your kid a tricycle is going to turn him into a Hell's Angel. There are 108 million Americans who have tried marijuana. There are less than 350, maybe 500,000 or 350,000 or so regular meth users who could be considered to be dependent. And furthermore, for many of those meth users, myself included, I had a bout of meth addiction in the early 90s, the mid 90s, that marijuana becomes the exit drug from these addictive substances. Now, some people might say, well, you're just treating one addiction for another. Okay. If that's the case, then good. You traded the meth addiction for a marijuana addiction? Congratulations. Thank you. Marijuana is the exit drug for many, many people. Fleming, of course, is a medical doctor. And by the way, Representative Harris is a medical doctor as well. But Fleming said he considers many claims about the medicinal benefits of marijuana to be complete rubbish. Yeah. It'd be funnier if there weren't millions of patients across this country who could benefit from the medical use of marijuana. It would be more funny if there weren't over 21,000 studies in PubMed.gov that show some medical benefit to some cannabinoid in some preparation somehow. It would be funnier if the U.S. government did not already own patent number 6630507 to patent the use of cannabinoids as antioxidants. It would be a lot funnier if we haven't known since 1974 that marijuana has the potential to radically alter our treatment of cancer in this country. These Republican medical doctors at that are so on the wrong side of history that their descendants will have to distance themselves from their reefer madness. Representative Fleming continued by warning that, quote, if we continue to relax our laws on the acceptance of marijuana, we're going to see greater addiction and greater government dependency, end quote. Well, you know what? On that second part, maybe he's right. Maybe there'll be more people on welfare and food stamps if we legalize marijuana, because those people will think what they're doing is legal. And then when they get popped on a workplace drug screen, they lose their job. And then they're unable to get another job. And then they end up on welfare. But if that's not what you're talking about, the discrimination against perfectly reasonable adults, perfectly valid employees who cannot get jobs merely because they're doing something legal, if that's not what you're talking about, then there's absolutely no basis, in fact, for the idea that relaxing our laws on marijuana is going to lead to greater government dependency. And as far as greater addiction, we have not seen that. That has not come to bear in any of the medical marijuana states or the first two states to legalize marijuana. We do not see greater addiction. Now, sometimes we see more teenagers being entered into drug treatment programs because getting caught with marijuana means that they are forced to go into a rehab. We may see more fatality drivers who had marijuana in their system because, marijuana is legal now. People might be using it more often. Didn't mean it caused the wreck. There's probably more gay male married drivers in fatality wrecks now too, because there are such things as married gay people now. But to continue, this was, again, Kevin Sabet's event. And it says it also had Barry McCaffrey, who was drug czar under Clinton, and Dr. Stuart Gitlow, get back up again, who's the board member. He's a board member of Project SAM. He's also the president of the American Society for Addiction Medicine. Dr. Gitlow, and get back up again, said there's, quote, no legitimate research at this time that the plant marijuana has medicinal value, end quote. Yeah. No applause. No applause for Dr. Gitlow. Don't like that one. Let's get rid of that one. But this idea, and a heckler responded to that by saying that research shows allowing marijuana for medical use may reduce painkiller overdose deaths. And that's one of the secrets, man, that the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want you to concentrate on, is that people are dying from these pharmaceutical painkillers, and that people who use marijuana in adjunct with their painkiller use less of their painkiller. Like if you're on 12 oxys a day, if you use marijuana, you can get by with maybe 3 oxys a day. Well, hell, pharmaceutical industry doesn't want you cutting back by 75% on your purchases of pills now, do they? Who else do we get in this? Barry McCaffrey, the drug czar, said, quote, we've got a disaster facing us. We've lost the message war on health. We've lost the political war. We've lost the media war, end quote. There's nothing funny about drug abuse. In terms of public policy, I think we've embarked on a rolling disaster. Do we want a stoned society? No more than we want a drunk society. That would be my answer, end quote. Well, Barry, take a look around, man. We've got a drunk society. Have you ever been to Florida? Go to Key West, Florida sometime. Take a walk up and down the streets. We got a drunk society. Go to New Orleans. Go to Las Vegas. Go to any major American city on a Saturday night in their downtown core. You will see a drunk society. Quit focusing so much on us stoners who aren't causing those kind of problems.
Elitist. Just like any other dishwashing, burger-flipping, public school-educated, self-employed, bar band, musician, National Guardsman, he's Radical Russ.
All right, 45 after the hour. When we come back in just about a minute and a half, we're going to wind up the show talking a little bit about Washington State. There is a bill proposed, still in the draft stages, to merge, to some extent, medical and recreational marijuana. We'll give you the details on that, and we'll take your calls and your comments in the chat room about how you think Washington medical marijuana ought to be reconciled with I-502. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org.
420 Radio, your ticket to Seattle Hemp Fest. You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, we've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks are far less than those posed by legal drugs. At Royal Queen Seeds, we've got premium feminized cannabis seeds, including auto-flowering varieties for the medical cannabis user. We've got bulk shipments available and new CBD oil. Plus, we accept payment in Visa, MasterCard, and Bitcoin, as well as other methods. Check out our website at royalqueenseeds.com for more information. We are located in the Netherlands, and we have online grow experts ready to help you now at royalqueenseeds.com.
Basitronics Audio.
Somebody say Miami? Oh, we got the booty bass going here on 420 Radio. That's Basitronics with bass buttons activated. Whenever I hear bass button stuff, I gotta drop down into that low baritone. That's right. The bass buttons are activated. I better fade this out before I start twerking. Nobody wants to see that. Welcome back. It's 47 and a half after the hour, and we're going to do an update here. The Seattle Post-Intelligencer has an article, How to Fix Medical Marijuana in Washington with One Simple Bill. And I think it does a pretty good job of pretty much distilling this new bill that's still in the draft phase, but to me represents probably the best shot medical marijuana has in the upcoming legislature. I have a feeling that, if we can't get behind this, the next things that might come out will be far less to our satisfaction. I may be wrong, but I think this is a fairly well-reasoned approach. And it's interesting to me how much it's going to make Washington's legalization mirror what's going on in Oregon. And I kind of predicted this, that there's an inescapable reality of setting up legalization in bordering states, that those states' legislatures are going to have to compete with each other. So as we describe this, keep that in mind. But first, we start with a recap of how Washington got into the situation it's in. They passed medical marijuana back in 1998 along with Oregon, but never in their initiative did it institute any sort of patient registry, dispensary system, nothing. It was fairly loose regulation, maybe the second loosest compared to California. So in 2011, State Senator Gene Cole Wells sponsors SB 5073, and it created a regulated medical marijuana system, licenses, dispensaries, the whole nine yards. It passed in the legislature. Legislature's like, yes, let's have some regulation for medical marijuana. Then the feds, specifically Jenny Durkin and Don Ormsby was his name? Anyway, Eastern and Western District of Washington, threatened to arrest anybody in the state for conspiracy to distribute or profit from illegal drug sales, right? We're going to arrest state employees if you enact this. So the governor at the time, Christine Gregoire, kind of freaked out about that. And so she line item vetoed, because they got that power in Washington state. They can veto just parts of a bill. She line item vetoed all the dispensary stuff, but left in the rest of it that kind of unintentionally made collectives into dispensaries and kind of quasi-legalized them. So they ended up in a situation where the problem they had with caregivers and originally in Washington state, that what they were doing for dispensaries was using a loophole in the law that said you could be a caregiver for one patient at a time. So that all your dispensary was a store counter where you were the caregiver, and whoever showed up in line, that was your patient. And you were only caregiving for them one patient at a time. So long as you weren't selling to two people at a time, you were legal, quasi, right? So to solve that, they passed this 5073. The governor scratches out enough of it that it actually exacerbated the original situation they were trying to figure out, which was, how do we deal with this quasi-regulated gray market in medical marijuana? And that's what happened. All these entrepreneurs started forming all these collectives and selling medical marijuana to anyone with a card, anyone who wanted to get a card. And it became increasingly easier to get a card because they also allowed naturopaths and nurse practitioners to be able to recommend the cards. So in 2012, voters go and just legalize marijuana under I-502. So what we're going to do here, what Washington State is planning to do, Gene Cole Wells, again, has a proposal for the 2015 legislature. And here are the key points. Number one, all users of marijuana, doesn't matter if you're recreational or medical, may grow marijuana for their personal use. People who wish to grow marijuana must be 21 or older and may only grow up to 6 plants. Now, the 6 plants rule would be good for law enforcement from their perspective, because it's, cops are dumb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, you're legal. 7. Okay, you're illegal, right? We don't have any variation on that. But I do believe, if I'm looking, I think there was something there, they may be able to allow medical users to have a larger amount, possession limits. Yeah. No, looks like 6 plants, just plain old 6 plants. Now I can hear the medical people screaming already, because right now under their law, they're allowed to have 15 plants. So that's, and that was considered what was the 60-day supply under the initiative that got passed. It's going to be a hard argument for Senator Wells, Gene Cole Wells, to say that 6 plants is a 60-day supply for some patients. But this may be one of those situations where you're better off fighting for half a loaf than getting none. And 6 plants per household, at least finally recreational users, would be able to grow their own marijuana. The people who grow marijuana at home must do so in their own home, and no more than 1 home grow is permitted per residence. Now, this is problematic from the point of view of, what if you're a renter living in a place where they won't let you grow marijuana? If you're a patient and your only place you can grow is your own home, and you're not allowed to grow in your own home, how is that going to work? Are those people then just forced to have to buy from the pot shops? And what about the fact that the judges, 4 of them so far in Washington State, have judged that the collectives can be banned and that the pot shops can be banned? So what is a patient in Kennewick going to do when there's no city around them that allows pot shops and their landlord doesn't allow them to grow? What's going to happen then? Another point says people who grow marijuana may share up to 1 ounce with another person without compensation, no cash donations, none of that you can share. They would allow 8 ounces of marijuana to be possessed at home where the plants are grown, but you can only have 1 ounce outside the home. Now that matches what Oregon's doing. We're going to allow you to have 8 ounces at home, 1 plant or 1 ounce when you leave the house. Washington will be allowing 6 plants. We'll only be allowing 4 plants. And, like Oregon is doing, another point is that hash oil may not be produced by anyone without a license. So again, that would ban homemade concentrate production. And I know patients are going to scream about that because a lot of them need the more potent concentrates that are available. And the other aspects of this will be taxes. And of course, right now under I-502, they've got the highest tax rates in the world on marijuana, 25% at 3 levels of distribution. So what she's planning to do is to set up just one tax rate at the cultivation level, which again is something that that Oregon and Alaska have done. Taxation at the point of cultivation, one level, one rate. And I believe it's going to have to be a fairly low rate because they're recognizing that having a tax rate that's too high just encourages black market sales. And they're going to have to compete with Oregon now that's going to have a fairly low tax rate at $35 an ounce. But of course, patients want tax-free medical marijuana, which they currently get through their collectives. So what she's trying to do here in the bill is that low THC, high CBD strains would be untaxed. Strains that you can say are definitely not recreational. Nobody's going to have any fun on a high CBD strain. So those would just be untaxed completely. And then for other marijuana products that have higher levels of THC that could either be medical or recreational, the Department of Health would set up a voluntary registry you'd get a medical marijuana card and you show that and you would get tax-free THC. Now, Washington patients are the only patients, aside from California, that have no statewide medical marijuana patient registry. Colorado's is voluntary, I believe, and maybe a couple other states are voluntary. But the only state other than California that has no statewide medical marijuana card is Washington. So I know they complain about we shouldn't have to register like sex offenders and you get all upset about it, but you don't have to register. It's voluntary. You would just have to pay more in tax. And I know people will complain about that, but I don't think that's unreasonable to sign up for a free get out of tax card. Also, patients between the ages of 18 and 21 would have access to medical cannabis still, where you have to be 21 to have access to recreational. So that would be your 18 to 21 year olds could get your medical card. So Gene Colwell's also says, quote, if we don't do this, it's going to exacerbate the situation with the black market and the gray market. People are growing as though they are a qualified patient or designated provider with very large liberal amounts allowable, the highest amounts in the country. We would be eventually eliminating the need for medical marijuana system. Right now, what's so problematic, whether we're talking about homegrown, the collective gardens, the dispensaries, whatever the case is, we've got people who have medical authorizations who should not have them. There's a lot of fraud going on from what I understand. There's a lot of abuse going on. If we do not allow home grows, we're going to continue with what we have, which I think is way overboard and undermining the I-502 stores. And my concern is with the patient's access to quality and reliability and not for people to become rich having a collective garden and selling it. So that is what is being proposed, and I believe would get a great amount of support in the Washington legislature. The articles on the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, if you want some more information on that, we'll post the link here in our chat room. And those of you listening in Washington State want to get a hold of your representatives, tell them what you feel about this. I think it's a good start. I think some of the things I addressed, though, will definitely have to be considered. You can't have a situation where a patient wouldn't be allowed to grow their own and wouldn't have a nearby pot store to get it. That's untenable to me. Wow, time flies when you're having fun. That's all the time we've got today for the Russ Belville Show and Toker Talk Radio. Got big changes in store for 2015. One of those coming up is we'll have additional podcast feeds for each of the segments. That's right. You'll be able to get just a Radical Rant podcast feed or just a Behind the Headlines podcast feed. It's one of the ways we're trying to increase the awareness and availability of the Russ Belville Show. Also in 2015, look for our Android and iPhone app, which are currently under development. And sorry about the tune-in problems. We're still working on those. We hope to have them finished by the end of the week. For everyone here at 420 Radio, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it,